I've been reading a lot and watching in the news a lot. Um, the move to cancel anything and anyone connected with slavery. And I wonder how far that goes. Does that mean cancel everything from the beginning? I think most people right now mean that to be the United States and the effects that had. But so you take an individual like Thomas Jefferson or George Madison, pardon me, George Washington or Madison or any of the original founders who did own some slaves, and so you cancel what they accomplish: the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the formation of this government, the growth of the country, and so forth. So, how far does it go? Do you take away learning of anybody about anybody or anything because they were connected with slavery in one form or another? And how far back do you go? Writing, the concept of writing, not picture, heliographics or picture writing, were developed in Sumeria, where present-day Iraq is now, 4,000, 3,800 years before the birth of Christ. So they also worked on astronomy, architecture, irrigation, how to make unfallow land more fertile. You take away all of that because that's a building block of civilization. And yes, there's been slavery throughout most of civilizations. So if you do that, what about Arabic numerals that we use that actually, the way I understand it, more or less came from India and developed through the Middle East, but those were all slave-holding societies. Uh, Aristotle, Plato, arguably two very influential people as far as developing Western civilization goes. Aristotle began what we call the scientific method. Physics, or the beginning of physics, geometry, developed during the Greeks. Egyptians, do you tear down the pyramids? Do you tear down the irrigation system of Egypt? Do you tear down the Roman Colosseum, the Parthenon in Greece? Do you take the Ottoman Empire and get rid of it? Because they actively they got slaves from everywhere. Not just Africa, although they got those, but also from Europe and the East and everywhere else. So this whole thing is self-defeating, I guess, unless you just want to destroy everything. And I don't think most people that hold up their cell phones or work these computers and whatnot want to do away with that. I mean, everything's a building block. We started off, and probably the Sumerians were the first to develop cities and agriculture. Historically, it was probably ongoing before that, but slavery was with us. It was part of the fabric of everything. It was here in the New World. I mean, the Aztec had them, the Iroquois had it, the Comanche had them. Everybody has practiced it in one form or another. Do you do away with all of that? And if you do, if you scrape it clean, you scrape everything down to the ground, what do you have to start with? I mean, there's people calling for doing away with grammar. you know, and how do you communicate an idea or a thought if you don't have proper grammar? And I'm not the world's best at that. But, you know, it's just Rome, Greece, the Ottomans, European civilization, Chinese civilization. What do? Do away with the Chinese Wall. I mean, the bulk of it was slave labor. St. Petersburg, Russia, Peter the Great built that by hauling in serfs, slaves, and the amount of deaths that took place in the building of that. Do you do away with St. Petersburg? You know, do you scrape Cairo off the map? You know, it just gets silly. Yes, it happened, and we have worked hard to correct that. And Western civilization probably harder than anybody. And yet we seem to be the ones developing the most flack over it. So I cannot see the value of destroying what went before because of slavery. Acknowledge it. I mean, yeah, we had them. People had them. It was a fact, and everybody enslaved everybody else. The Ashanti Empire in Africa, its biggest economic machine was slavery, and they sold them. I mean, the Portuguese were just a new market for them. They weren't the only market, and so forth. I mean, the Arabs, who seemed to get a pass on this whole slavery thing, I mean, they took way more slaves out of sub-Saharan Africa than the Europeans did, and were much more cruel to them. So slavery happened. We have to, hopefully we have learned from it. We cannot erase it, and you cannot erase the result of it. I mean, well, I can't say you can't. I mean, people may want to. What was that movie some years ago? Idiocracy. And people don't know anything, but they utilize it. The Time Machine, the novel, basically goes into the future, and people are living off of the fruits of something they don't understand, and they're not very useful people. So you have to learn to live with the past and learn from the past. You can't, well, I can't say you can't, but you should not erase the past. And you can't say people are bad because they practice something that was ongoing at the time and it's against what we think now. I mean, that's the problem is I mean, a lot of the people demanding that we do away here in this country are not willing to leave this country and the benefits that it has bestowed upon them. And so that's my question I leave you with is do you want to wipe it all out and try to start again from a Stone Age perspective, which I don't think most of us could survive? I was reading about settlers on the Texas frontier in the 19th century, and I couldn't last 5 minutes doing what they did, and I'm sure most of us today could not either. So take that for what it's worth and try to learn from it. And till the next time.